Hello and welcome to Curating Dreams, a creatives podcast. Already having fun. So today we're here at Volta Bistro. And truthfully, not because she's around, the owner, but it's my new favorite hangout in Accra.
Yeah.
It was designed by for creatives.
Yeah.
Aside from the event, just the feel. It gives, I think it gives restaurant meets 𝗖𝗿𝗏𝗀𝗀, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, definitely worth a try. And with two truly amazing people, grab your popcorn, your snack, whatever it is at your mall, whatever it is that, makes you happy when you're listening to your favorite podcast, because this is going to be an interesting one. I'm with two natural talkers, people who talk for a living, so this one will be, I don't know how it's going to be, but looking forward. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure thing.
Sure. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm 𝗖𝗿𝗥𝗔𝗧𝗜𝗚, popularly known as Liz Johnson. I don't know how that stuck, but it did. I'm a writer, researcher, and cultural curator. For my 9 to 5, I work as the cultural programs manager at the 𝗖𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 Institute, but I'm also the founder and director of the 𝗖𝗥𝗘𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀 Institute.
And my name is 𝗖𝗿𝗥𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀. I, too, am a writer, cultural researcher, but I also am a teacher, PhD student, and a DJ. And I think that's about it.
And I'm 𝗖𝗿𝗥𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀. I'm not going to compete with their credentials right now. Let's just get to talking. So like I said, and you sort of went into that, the fact that we're all three of us writers and researchers is interesting. Academic, 𝗖𝗨𝗥𝗔𝗧𝗜𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, Just Magazine, 𝗖𝗨𝗥𝗘𝗔𝗠𝗦, Goethe Institute, like our worlds just keep and it's one of the reasons this feels like not just one full circle moment, maybe an intersectional full circle moment. I remember you from way back, that's Live, that's Magazine. My first meetings with you, I think while you're producing writers projects on City, so this is crazy. And then we did an interview for 𝗖𝗥𝗘𝗔𝗠𝗦 Radio that for unfortunately couldn't air.
And we've done an interview for 𝗖𝗥𝗘𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀 Radio before, right when it was starting.
That was a podcast I had, Memories and Rhythm, I was a resident on 𝗖𝗥𝗘𝗏𝗏𝗀, so I had that podcast here. I'm trying to bring it back as a live event, but yeah.
Very cool.
So I was initially going to call this episode Hack the System. And then I looked up words that get flagged, and hack is possibly one of them.
Oh, wow.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, because they wouldn't understand where I'm coming from. And I was thinking more like, it feels like all three of us have hacked the system in surviving the arts in West Africa and Ghana.
Okay.
Because it's crazy. The fact that we do this for a living, still around, still relevant, I think. It's crazy. I know, right? So I don't know, we could start anywhere. Art and thoughts, knowledge on rocks.
Okay. Art and thoughts. It's more of an institution.
Right. Okay. Yes. So Art and Thoughts, it's a conversation platform that I started with the Foundation for Contemporary Arts, FCA Ghana. They are also an art collective, and they are in cantonment. And so I put it under my 𝗖𝗥𝗘𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 Institute. And the goal for Art and Thoughts was really to create a platform for practitioners, cultural practitioners, to showcase work in progress, research in progress, or a finished documentary or film that they want to get feedback on. What I like about it is that it has created a platform where people can actually get feedback for work in progress, and a lot of the people who have come on present work in progress or practice in progress, and they usually give us feedback that they really enjoy the audience engagement and feedback on their work, and they're seeing how to move it forward and things like that. And the goal is it's really created for all types of cultural practitioners, from writers to artists to filmmakers to even academics whose work explores cultural practice. And so that really was the reason why we started Art and Thoughts. For me, the discussion with Atu Anan and Adjoa was that I really thought we needed a space where there is an engagement, because I think I'm academic biased. Yeah, so I've been in academia for a while until I switched into cultural practicing full-time currently. And I enjoyed going for symposiums and colloquiums, and I thought that we needed something like that within the Accra creative space for engagement. And yes, started in 2022, and we've had a lot of engagements from practitioners based in Ghana, people who are doing residencies in Ghana, from Nigeria, from Austria, from America, from all over the world, and it's been great. So that's the reason why we started Art and Thoughts.
The last one was with Bernard Akoya.
Yes, the last one was with Dr. Bernard Akoya-�𝗏𝗂.
Yes.
So he is an artist and a professor or a doctor at the 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀 University of Science and Technology, the arts department, and we showcased his practice really, how he uses his body as art and also to speak on certain issues. The particular one touching on the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗀, and he did a short documentary through his practice, and so he showcased the 17-minute, 17-second film. 17 seconds, yes, the film. And he went to a gold mining site, a 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀 site, and did a whole walkthrough. And if you know Bernard, he's known as the man in gold. Yeah, so he did all of that and walked through it. And then he showed us some of his work. He was recently at the Venice Biennale, so he did a showcase as well. So it really was engaging on how his art speaks to current issues politically and also socially, and also just seeing the progress of his art practice and where he thinks it's going. Yeah, so it was nice. We had about 45 people come through, and there's always drinks after, my favorite part. So.
Also,
yeah,
I mean, it's one of the things I admire about all three of us, this ability to be a creative and also still be academia-ish, and it kills this kind of conversation or this thought about creatives be losers, be like, it gives a different face, if you will. And it's also you in particular, 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗏, is one of the things I've admired for a long time. The way you go on your lectures, and everyone I've met who's been your students find you like one of the coolest lecturers. Obviously, understandably. Because you bring to the classroom a different kind of approach, I imagine. And one of your latest projects that I really admire is this whole knowledge on the rocks. Taking the classroom to the bar.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
No, it's so funny because up until now I had not realized the parallels between Knowledge on the Rocks and Art and Thoughts. But I guess it's coming from the same place. I can't lay claim to the idea in the sense that so there's a thing that's been happening, I think it's in New York, called bar lectures. And they came up, and as soon as they started, I think people were seeing it on TikTok. And I just had a number of former students get in touch to say, 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗏, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. And I said, oh, 𝗐𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍 But then Tazia from Palm Moments reached out, and she said, can we do this? And I just so happened to have something in mind that I wanted to talk about. So I think it was July of last year. We did the first one. It went really well, and then I think I had to do a lot of traveling. But then at Christmas, I decided to do maybe 3 in a row. So like each Friday, and so all of them were music themed, and so you had things like Afrobeats versus hip life and why one took off and one didn't. No, not hip life, Azonto. Yeah, Afrobeats and Azonto. And so we went into that, and then just kind of a political history of Ghana told through different decades of high life. So we did that, and that went down a storm as well. And so we've now started it as a monthly thing. We had Nana Dankwa Sechiama. So it's not just academics, but it's just thinkers generally. So we had Nana Dankwa Sechiama, very famously wrote The Sex Lives of African Women. And then very recently we had 𝗖𝗍𝗥𝗔𝗧𝗜𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, also a fellow DJ, who is writing essentially about our indigenous knowledge systems.
She's into wellness as well.
Exactly. So she's linking it to wellness. And so she's essentially talking about African wellness, African-rooted, African-centered wellness. And the idea is basically that I don't see myself first and foremost as an academic. I see myself as a culture nerd. And so there's an academic aspect to that makes my world compatible with academia. And of course, I'm doing the PhD off the back of that. But
sorry, what's your PhD in?
So my PhD is in sociology, but the topic is I'm looking at essentially how artists and their listeners, music artists and their listeners, in the alternative scene here in Accra, how they communicate and understand ideas of care for other people, empathy, social care, these kinds of things. Yeah, so it's very grounded in music. It's very grounded in the alter scene, but it's very grounded also in these ideas of like care. But in doing it, I'm constantly thinking about audience, and I don't want to write academic papers and they're just sitting there for, I don't know, European people to sit down and be like, oh, this is what the natives are looking at now. Like, I'm interested in problems that are our problems, and translating that to our people, especially the people who are being researched. So I think that that's what Knowledge on the Rocks tries to do. And then I think that's what Art and Thought tries to do. And we need a lot more of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
When I was preparing for this, one of the things I noticed with a smile on my face was how all three of us have done radio. Oroko, you did
Joy, Vibe
Joy,
FM,
Vibe.
Joy FM, YFM.
Why? Wow, yeah, why?
Yeah.
And I did Atlantis, I did Vibe.
Yeah, also
Yeah.
sitting with Writers Project.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, so linked to our mutual love for radio is our love for music, naturally. And two of you, I'm taking myself out for a reason, have like a superior love of Highlife that I absolutely admire. When we did the interview at my place,
Yeah.
we spoke extensively about that, and I really couldn't, even though I'm Ghanaian, my mother is from Madagascar,
Yes.
so I didn't have that much of Highlife played in it, even though I love it, of course. But that part is fascinating for me, how you guys dig into Highlife, you do your research, speak about Highlife a lot. Yeah, and I just would like for us to go there for a few minutes, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I think for me, being a Highlife junkie really started from home. I was born in the UK, and my mom Nigerian, my dad Ghanaian. So I grew up in a very interesting setting. And my dad was a collector of things, and so he would collect vinyls and books, and a lot of the vinyls were Highlife vinyls. So aside his love for Highlife, he would also collect like Michael Jackson and the pops as well. So as I grew up like really listening to a lot of music in the house. And so when my dad and my mom are home from work, they would play a lot of music. So I feel like it just naturally was a part of me. But my curiosity with the vinyls really started when we moved to Ghana, and like I realized that my dad had a huge box of vinyls. So I'll be looking at Michael Jackson's Thriller and Bad album, and I'll be looking at like this German Ghanaian Bogger Highlife singer. No, George Darko,
Yeah.
his vinyl. And I'm like, oh, did George get some inspiration from Michael because of the Jerry Kill? And then would play the vinyls, and I'll be hearing a lot of interesting like picks. So that's really how my love for music in general started. For Highlife, I think it's because, we moved to Ghana and I was more connected to it. But also, Highlife was really a way for my mom and my dad to be in conversation, I realized. And this is something I realized as I grew older. So, my dad would just like play Sunny Ade at
Highlife
home.
is a love language.
That's a love language, yes. So,
dope.
I mean, when, so like when on Sundays or Christmas or like birthdays, I realized that my dad would be playing like Sunny Ade, and my mom would be so happy dancing, moving her hips around. I'm like, okay, so Nigerians also had something similar to us. So it just grew that way. And yeah, I studied music for my first degree at the University of Ghana. So I did a combined major in music and English. I had to drop one. I would have really just done music, English, history. I wish I could have continued, but you have to drop one. So I did English and music. And in my study of music, I didn't enjoy learning. I appreciated Mozart and Beethoven, but I just didn't feel connected to it. And when I realized that we could study Ghanaian popular music, I was like, oh, sign me up. And we had like lecturers like Professor Collins, you know, who is really like a griot of Highlife music. So sitting in his classes, I really enjoyed it because for me, it felt less of a lecture and more like an adventure. So I really saw myself as a little kid listening to all his experiences and his thoughts on it. But what I really enjoyed about it was that you really were learning about Ghanaian history and West African history through music. And that really spoke to me. So I think that's where the connection really just made a huge bond for me. I knew that, I mean, I wasn't going to do law like everyone thought I was going to, but I really wanted to see how intellectual conversations were found in creative work. So I think that's where the love for Highlife really just solidified, from a homegrown to like going to school and studying it and seeing that I learned more about Nkrumah and his passion for Ghana through my music classes than I did in my history classes, and that spoke to me. So yeah, that's really my love for Highlife. And really, I mean, everyone is taking inspiration from Highlife music. The current music today, everyone draws inspiration. If you listen very closely, you would see that they really sample a lot of Highlife music, and not just our African Afro beats or alternative musicians, even DJs now, that DJing is really a big thing. But even if you go to the Western, you know, music, they really do sample a lot of our greats. So why not just enjoy the original, you know, and see and just live in the moment. So that's Highlife for me.
Thank you.
You do all. You do all. I mean, for real. It's funny because as I was listening to you, I was thinking, it reminded me again how much we are twins. But then also two things. Number one, I feel like you have such an advantage in the sense that you have both the Ghanaian and Nigerian Highlife from childhood, and that's amazing. What's funny is that, so I'm born in the UK too, but I did not have Highlife growing up. My dad was obsessed with Bob Marley, with Bob James, like, so a lot of jazz, a lot of reggae, Michael Jackson, obviously, all of that stuff, but I don't actually remember any Highlife before 1987, which is when I first moved as a child to Ghana. And so my introduction to Highlife proper was Cape Coast. So it wasn't like 𝗿𝗀𝗁𝗁 was, for me, I was like, I'm listening to 𝗿𝗀𝗁𝗁 and I did not understand what he was saying, but I knew that I speak Fanti, and that's when I learned that there's a difference between Fanti and Twi. That's how I learned it. And then, but in Cape Coast, there were people who were bigger in Cape Coast than they were elsewhere in the country. Like Pozo Hayes was part of my kind of Highlife education, but people don't really talk about him so much outside of Central Region, that kind of thing. So I think I came to it a bit differently, but it also helped me to connect once I came back. I had like, so 1987 is when I came back, then I went back after 7 years, and then I was back after 7 years, and I've been back now.
Something with a number 7.
Yeah. But then I've been back now for about 20 years or so.
Today is 27.
It keeps on coming up. But yeah, so I think for me, it's exactly what you said. And as a teacher, one of the things I get to do, so I teach currently at a place called 𝗖𝗿𝗏𝗂𝗐 on Legon campus. And I get to teach American students who are visiting and introduce them to the culture. And what I do is I introduce them to the culture through exactly what you said, which was, if you study Highlife music decade by decade, not just Highlife as we think of it, but Highlife and its derivatives, all the way to Asaka, decade by decade, and you put it in the context of what is happening in Ghana at the time, you see that the two are always interlinked.
Yeah.
And so there's so much you can unlock just from studying the music. It will tell you about the Rawlings years, it will tell you about the Nkrumah years, it will tell you about everything in between, and it will tell you about now. Yeah.
I mean, and who said education had to be one-dimensional?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Especially for us, because we're African, and traditionally speaking, we didn't learn about things in silos. It was all intertwined anyway. So this is closest to that.
Yeah, I really agree. I think, it's even studying English. I mean, I focused not on grammar, which was very difficult. So props to people who do grammar. I don't understand how you guys do it. But I focused on literature. And again, I was really focused on like Ghanaian or African literature. And again, you'd read African writers, and then you'd learn about things that you would not even learn in, say, courses like history again, or like political science. So I remember reading 𝗖𝗨𝗥𝗔𝗧𝗜𝗡 one of her books, I think it's Changes, and there's a scene where the two friends are meeting at a hotel. And then later on I realized that, oh, she probably was describing the Ambassador Hotel, which existed, you know. And this is in conversation with a friend who studied architecture in KNUST, and he had no idea about that. And so for me, it was like, look at how I'm studying courses like English and music, and I know a lot about Nkrumah and his policies, and you know, the hotels that existed, and people who studied history and architecture are really missing the nuances. So that kind of solidified my interest in popular culture and cultural studies. I really felt like I had found my grounding. And like you mentioned earlier, the idea that people really assume people who do creative stuff are not as intelligent, and I found that quite sad. So it was also more like a rebellion for me, like, okay, if you think I am smart and you think I should study law, I am not going to study law, I'm going to be in culture, and I'm going to prove that we are even smarter than your average, you know, lawyer or architect. So yeah, I really enjoy the way culture, music, literature, even dance, and they come together. And if you sit down and find yourself in a rabbit hole, you're going to be learning about things that someone who is like studying history would miss, because of how serious, I guess, and how linear it is in its teaching. You know,
I mean, another thing I've noticed from this conversation, and also from reading and researching you both, is that we are all three very into archiving, like preserving for future generations what it is that we've done, or the ones before us have done. Your documentary 𝗖𝗥𝗏𝗏𝗀, you with Fiancra, and you worked with 𝗖𝗨𝗥𝗏𝗀𝗀, and you're actually doing a residency now.
Yes, with the 𝗐𝗍𝗍
residency. And of course, Curating Dreams will be here in like 50 years, and we'll remember this moment. But the question is that maybe 𝗖𝗥𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀,
Okay.
because I was fascinated, not just looking at how some of the people I know looked 8 years ago, and their thoughts and all of that, but how essentially we've survived this art scene. And I haven't seen the full documentary yet, but I can't wait.
So I haven't seen the full documentary yet either. So we're doing a last cut. We did the first cut and it was 3 hours long. Like, that's not gonna work. We did a second cut. We were able to bring it down to 2 hours. And now we have a final cut that's about 1 hour and 40 minutes. So we're putting the finishing touches on it. We'd hoped to be out in April, but it will be out by the end of June. And what it was is, about and it taps into the same art and thought knowledge on the rocks conversation. So I was thinking before starting my PhD, how can I, so the idea was to just ask a series of creatives how they survive and how they think of their work in relation to Ghana. How does it fit in? Why is it important? And so with the help of my friend 𝗖𝗨𝗥𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏, we came up with a set of questions. And the idea was, rather than doing the academic thing of going to interview them, recording, let's actually use cameras in nice locations, do the interviews, and that way it can serve two purposes. Number one, you can generate an academic paper, but number two, you can generate output that can now go back into the creative community. So you're serving the creative community and the academic community. So we did that. And then I just got busy. Life be lifing. And so the interviews just sat on my computer, moving from hard drive to broken computer to new hard drive.
You're lucky a virus didn't kill it.
I'm so lucky, because then I think it was last year that I saw that Africa No Filter were offering kind of funds for research into creative work.
Right.
And I was just like, huh. And then I thought, okay, so it's been 8 years now. What about applying in order to do a second set of interviews with the same people, ask them exactly the same questions, and see where it goes? And so got the funding. And so that's what I was able to do. Out of, it was 9 people we spoke to originally. I was able to get 8 of them. One person, 𝗵𝗂𝗏, DJ Keys. Yeah, she's left and she's hard to contact. I think the last time we spoke was maybe a year ago or something. There was an article that I wrote that you commissioned, actually. Yes, the Lost Sonic City, Accra, 2017 or something like that. And I talked about her in that piece and then sent her the draft to basically be like, we haven't forgotten you. But yeah, she left years ago. And so that is also part of the story, because 𝗵𝗂𝗏 is part of the story. Like, if not for 𝗵𝗂𝗏, we wouldn't have Boga Highlife, to be quite frank. So yeah, and it's turned
for our non-West African audience.
It's basically to do with leaving. Yeah, it's to do with leaving. Some would say that it is the Ghanaian dream, very unfortunately. But yes, to 𝗵𝗂𝗏 is borrowed from our Nigerian brothers and sisters, and it means essentially to leave. Yeah, and yeah, so Accra Becoming is a documentary about 1.5 hours long, just looking at creative struggle and how the creatives who are still here have navigated that, how they've and the thing is, just like an academic paper, certain things have come up. I very recently did the conclusion, and I won't give everything away, but essentially, like, you can see that one of the big things that obviously jumps out is that people have survived, they've grown. The people who we interviewed in the beginning who started out part-time, most of them are now full-time creatives, which is now something that is more possible than it was then. Yeah, it's quite amazing. And then another big thing that comes up is that the state, people have been able to do this despite of the state rather than because of support from the state, which becomes a statement in and of itself. So it's been quite interesting work to do. And I'm looking forward to it coming out and me showing it to the original 8 and all the people that they know. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I hear you, the fact that we do things, whether or not we get funny, and usually we don't, we still move. Sorry, this before you come in, I'm just wondering, either one of us, are we, I mean, I know I've had those thoughts, but are either one of us interested in politics? Because sometimes it feels like, oftentimes, I mean, we are criticizing from the periphery. But how about we actually enter the circle?
Yeah, I had a good friend who told me that I should I should actually focus on going into politics, and I have a mentor who works, I can't give his name away, but he works closely with the vice president, and so we try to meet when he's available, and we talk, and he's always encouraging me to like continue the work I'm doing, but like try to branch into doing a master's in like policy or international relations, because he thinks I would be a good advocate for the arts and creativity. Am I interested? I think I don't have a natural interest in politics. My interest lies in what they are doing and how it affects me. So I'm always reading up on, what policies they are making or not making and how it affects us, things like that. A few years ago, I actually thought I might go into that, but I think the issue with politics is that, and I respect it in its way, it's its own game, and you'd really have to have a certain way of thinking and doing things to survive in politics.
More or less a corrupted spirit?
Not necessarily. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of politicians are linked with corruption, but this is not to speak for politicians. I think wherever there's money and there's power, corruption is there. So even most recently, tech is like a big thing and it's getting a lot of money. People in tech are now, there's a lot of like finger pointing on, founders and tech bros and the issues that they have. I think just where there is money and power, there is corruption. But there's a certain level of mindset that needs to go with politics and being a politician that I don't think I have the patience for that. I'm someone who, I see a problem, I don't have time to set up a committee. I want to solve the problem immediately because I feel like spending a day on wallowing on issues is enough. After that day, can we find a solution? And so that's the kind of person that I am. But with politics, it's really an issue of time and patience and frustration. And it goes beyond politics. I think if you are in a line of policy making, because I now work with institutions that come up with policies to support people, are using taxpayers' money to support the arts. And so I see the similarities in having bureaucracy and the importance of bureaucracy and, the issues of, the powers at play on how they are changing the narratives or speaking to the narratives that affects creatives. And I think that my exposure to that doesn't make me interested in, I won't say wasting time or putting my time in being a politician. I'd rather set up like the 𝗖𝗿𝗏𝗀𝗀 Institute and use all this knowledge to create systems that help us work in spite of, things not being available. So for me, I would work closely with politicians though, because I think that you do need all sorts of characters on your side to be able to move things forward. Like 𝗖𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀 Institute can do a lot of work, but if we have, say, the cultural ministry, on our side or an ally, it means that we are able to push and reach bigger and more people. And so I feel like, I would love to find myself within these spaces to work with them. But being a politician, I think it's like being a businessman. I know I'm ranting now, but I find myself, I am a creative and I work with creatives a lot, but a lot of my time is spent with people who work in tech and finance and business. And so a lot of my time actually is with people within those sectors. And so I see the value of having a business mind and being very brutal. And I see how working in these spaces, you really have to have a sense of brutality to make it at the top. The millionaires and billionaires of our times, they are not millionaires just because they are lucky and talented. They are making certain decisions that put themselves in favor and put a lot of people at risk. But that's how the game goes, And I'm not that kind of person, but I would need someone like that to appreciate the art and see how they can use that mindset to benefit a writer who wants to just spend their time writing and, make money out of it. We need someone like that to know how to negotiate and do things. So that's how I see it.
And I think it's been our strength, but also sometimes our weakness when we haven't seen or been able to think this way strategically, because as creatives, and I think it's the way we are wired naturally, we're more into like how do I put it? The
empathy of things.
The emotive, is that the word, aspect rather than the logic. So it takes effort on our part to be able to get to that side as well.
I think for me, just coming off of the back of what you're saying, I, as a teacher, I realize that most of the places where I teach, you have children of privilege, considerable privilege in relation to the rest of society. sometimes simply by the fact of being in that particular institution, sometimes due to the economics behind them being in those institutions. And so I think about this in relation to culture, in relation to the arts. And the way that I look at it is this, exactly what Elizabeth said. If I, as a teacher, I am able to persuade a student whose parents operate in high levels of industry, right? Cool. If I'm able to influence that student to have an appreciation of culture, then by the time they grow up, they are in conversation with each other. And so that artist needs funding for a particular project and is able to speak to their captain of industry friend who has an appreciation of what this person is doing and knows the person personally. Maybe I've done some good. So I spend a lot of time as a teacher thinking about that and thinking, I mean, when I was at 𝗖𝗨𝗥𝗔𝗧𝗜𝗍 between 2011 and 2019. And when I was there, I mean, most 𝗖𝗨𝗥𝗔𝗧𝗜 students are going into entrepreneurship, engineering, computing tech. Now they've added law. And so the idea is that give them an appreciation of culture, give them an appreciation of the humanities. And I think it's to 𝗖𝗨𝗥𝗔𝗧𝗜's credit, it's wired into their format.
Yeah, that's true.
So the liberal arts major that they, well, there's no liberal arts major, but the liberal arts system that they study within creates engineers who have studied things like African philosophical thought or who study critical thinking, those kinds of things. And I think what is happening in the world right now, it's really interesting actually, because this ties into the AI conversation, which is essentially this. AI started out as literally predictive text. That thing on your phone where you write, how are, and then the next word can be you or they, or, but then the more language that they fed it, they were not appreciating culture. They were looking at it from a kind of tech science point of view. And what happened was the more language they gave it, the thing started doing things that they didn't think it could do, where it starts predicting so much that it seems like it's really reacting to what you're saying. And that's how we get this whole large language models, and that's how we get this generative AI thing. The key to unlocking it was language. And language falls very cleanly under culture. And so all of a sudden you have people who are into culture being hired by these firms. And now we've reached a point where it's become a massive, such a philosophical debate that A, the Pope literally came up with a master document on this yesterday. And B, you have companies like Anthropic that they're hiring entire teams of philosophers to look at the philosophical and cultural aspects of this. And so we've come kind of full circle. Language contains so much richness about humanity that when you unlock the language, it brings about all of these things. And so it's been very full circle. And then to just quickly go back to your question on politics, I'm not into politics either. No, but I am into policy. I am increasingly interested in policy, and I think I would like to work on policy a lot more than I currently do. I think I've done the kind of research aspect, the practitioner aspect, the writing aspect, and I think the missing thing for me is how does that all come together into policy recommendations, both at the national level and at the international level. And so I'm interested in working with the Ministry of Culture. I'm interested in working with UNESCO. These are like, yeah, things that I do have in mind.
I was going to say something, got distracted. Policy.
But not politics.
No, but not politics. And I think that every creative should be interested in policy, because from policy emerges, how do I put it, the direction of what we can essentially do at some point. and also our ability to advocate for ourselves
Yep.
and not need anyone else. Something else I was going to say.
If I could just jump onto that while you try and remember, one of the things that came up in the documentary, and it's 𝗖𝗥𝗏𝗏 of Foundation for Contemporary Art that I have to credit with this. He talked repeatedly, both 8 years ago and now, he basically said the cultural policy of Ghana, the cultural policy of Ghana document, how far, what is happening, why do we not have it? Because there are very solid, well thought out ideas in there that need to be implemented and would be really helpful for creatives and creativity in Ghana. I think the last I heard of it was UNESCO sponsored a meeting that happened and they came up with something, but I don't think it's gone before Parliament, and at this point it needs to.
Yeah, I really hope they do something about it, because I think if you look at the history of Ghanaian politics, I think aside, and Nkrumah himself studied philosophy, we haven't had a close enough government in power since Nkrumah left, and close enough is the interest in the creative arts, or the supposed interest, because if we look at what's happening now, the question is, are they really interested? But my point is that Nkrumah was very invested in cultural policies and the cultural arts, and how that defined what Ghana looks like within the Ghanaian individual, and most importantly to the outside world. And I mean, this is why Ghana is every few years becomes the place to come to for the African American diaspora, for even people globally to visit, you know, and feel what it means to be African. So the point I'm trying to make is that we have a president who studied history for his first degree and studied communications. We have a vice president who was once the head of, you know, English department at the University of Cape Coast. We have a cultural minister who really worked within the sector herself, acting, theater, poetry. And so for me, I feel like, I mean, we even have, I mean, I think John Dumelo is the
MP.
He's an MP. He's the deputy for agriculture.
Yes.
He is, right? I think so, yes. And he himself was within the creative arts. I mean, the first time I saw John Dumelo, he was acting in About to Wed. There's a series that had also the lady that just passed, the actress that just passed away, 𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, yes. May she rest in peace. So I think that if you look at the three important
portfolios.
For the creative art, the president himself, you know, and then the VP, they are coming from that sector, through literature, through history, through communications, and there's a bit of creativity within all of these, you know. And then our cultural minister as well, having played an essential role before and becoming a political leader for that sector. I really hope that we don't miss out. The time is now for any kind of policy to be made, for any kind of investment to be made, because as 𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗀 said, in spite of the things being there, we've had coups, we've had military rulers, we've had economists as leaders. The cultural scene has been able to organically keep itself going.
Exactly.
You know, and so now is the time, with Ghana's place in the world and with these leaders, now is really the time. I don't know when we would get this opportunity again. And I really hope that they realize it and, you know, do more beyond setting up committees and saying there's a fund and then it's left to wonder. There's so much that can be done. It's really even just getting people like interesting policy, like 𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, like 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 for a meeting. If you have to set up a committee meeting, set it up with people who are doing the work and understand how the system is. And then with their knowledge and your knowledge on how politics and governance works, we'll have a very good, you know, progress forward. So I think now is the time.
Hard agree. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, me too. I think I unintentionally cut you off. We were on archiving.
Yes,
that was the topic we needed to come back to. Yes, archiving.
So you want me to speak on archiving?
Yes.
I had a feeling you wanted to say something about your residency.
Yeah, so I'm doing a residency with 𝗍𝗏𝗏𝗏. It's on archiving, and the goal of the residency is to train cultural practitioners who are interested in archiving on how to archive, the skill of archiving and what to think about when archiving. And at the end of the residency, you come up with the project that you would have completed. And so it's going really nicely. For me, I'm learning the hard knocks when it comes to archiving, and then but I think that archiving really is within the works of creatives naturally, because at the end of the day, creatives want to put out something, and that in itself is a documentation of their experiences and how other people relate to it. So archiving is naturally work of creatives. However, the institutional form of archiving is what 𝗖𝗍𝗍 and 𝗖𝗨𝗥𝗔𝗧𝗜𝗏 is trying to take us through, and that really is a lot more work. What I can say really beyond and being in that institution and that residency is that, again, when going through the program, you realize that I cannot be a creative and be an archivist, because it's a full-time job, and it takes away my time to want to write a novel or like document other things. It's really a full-time job, and one of the things that we are missing within our ecosystem are positions that fill the gaps for the creative to exist as a creative who produces. So again, we need people who are coming into the creative sector to say, oh, I love the creative arts, but I don't necessarily have to be a writer or a poet or a musician or a makeup artist or an artist, a visual artist. I could be a curator, I could be an editor, I could be an archivist, and that in itself is a lot of work that helps the people you are interested in to move forward. So if you have an archivist who is solely an archivist, it means that while people are writing, and I talk of writing because I'm biased to literature, but while people are writing or while people are producing albums, this archivist is looking at how we can systematically keep records of these things that speak to the Ghanaian context, no matter if we are looking at traditional ways or contemporary ways. And so that's what I can say about being in that. It really just narrows down the fact that we need roles that are defined so that we expand on who is doing what, and the creative, the writer who just wants to write, knows that after I'm done with my draft of a manuscript, or after I'm done with whatever I have an editor who looks at it to refine it. And we need editors of Ghanaian heritage, not editors of Caucasian editors because you are publishing with an international. We need that context. We need agents who are trying to get you deals. We need publicists who are trying to push out the book in a way that would attract even a taxi driver to say, oh, there's this book that I've been seeing on TikTok, let me go and buy it for my daughter, or myself read it and see, and just enjoy it. And then the system is just, moving well.
And that's an important, very important side note, the fact that your manager for 𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏, which will be 10 this year. Very important year. And it's like the perfect place for writers,
the ecosystem,
editors, publishers, illustrators to meet. Awesome. We're almost out of time because we hijacked this space. That's not another flag word. But we got permission to use the space, and they will open because it's a space where people come through in a few minutes. So, but one of the important things I wanted to talk about as well is the fact that we all have a multicultural upbringing and socialization, if you will. Land has greatly influenced the work
what we do.
And if we're interested in talking about, to what extent, I could start. I mean, I already mentioned earlier the fact that my mom is Malagasy and my father is Ghanaian. And for many years now, she's older, so she has mobility issues. But we would actually perform on stage together. And my mom, played the house a lot, the guitar, sang a lot. She doesn't do that as much. And many women I noticed sacrifice their ambitions for their children. She's one of those. So she studied journalism, never practiced. And lately I see her sketching a lot, which I never saw when I was growing up. And I always associated my ability to sketch, draw with my father, because he was an architect first before becoming an engineer. But I didn't know that I was getting it from two places. So I see her sketch like portraits, like awesome, 100% at her age without practicing. I'm like,
how old is she?
She's 71.
Wow.
So it's, sad to say, but I feel like she's missed out on, you know, a part of her calling, if you will.
Okay.
For my sake. So I appreciate it. But so we're on multicultural. And so in my case, my father, of course, because he's also a creative, even though he didn't follow through that creative path. But my mother was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Instrumental in the choices I made, even though neither of them like the financial deficiencies of this part.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's my story.
I mean, as far as the multicultural side of things goes, I guess it's the UK Ghanaian thing. So I'm a dual citizen of Ghana and the UK. And I think what it means is that I've just always considered myself someone who I'm constantly talking between worlds. When I first moved to Ghana, I started blogging. And my blogging was essentially to speak to my people who are in the UK and tell them that I'm okay. And then after some time, it was also to explain and then it's also to tell my Ghanaian people what's up on international issues that maybe they weren't understanding or needed additional context. And so a lot of my writing starts off from bridging cultures. Yeah, and I think for me, that's where I still find myself really. And so I'm able to just communicate across. Yeah,
I think for me, it will be, I was born in the UK, and then my mom is Nigerian, my dad is Ghanaian, and then we moved to Ghana. We spent some time in Nigeria and came back. I think what stood out for me is always being considered as the other. So when I was in the UK, I went to a school where I was like the only black students at the time, and you can imagine in the early 90s how that would be. It was hard in some cases, but I think I had it also pretty good because I grew up in a community where my mother was really liked, and so I think that's just transferred to me being liked by their mothers and their children. And so even over the weekends, my mom always had drinks and, you know, lollipops at home, and so the kids would want to come. My dad made sure we had cable, so we had access to like music 24/7, and so kids would want to come and watch Cartoon Network and things like that at our place. So I did experience being an other, but not as much as I did when I moved here, which is interesting because by the time that I moved here, I had an accent. I was this girl from the UK, and you can imagine that going into school, kids have already formed their groups, you know, so it was a bit difficult for me to find my footing, and being an introvert, that made it a bit hard. So writing for me became the outlet. I remember writing about, you know, turning my classmates into characters and writing about their lives. And then one of my friends who's now in the US, and we became very good friends because she found I was writing, and then she would pick it up and want to like read. She was like, oh, you can write. So that really is. So for me, it's really been the other. Even when I'm calling family, you know, I speak to my uncles and my cousins in Nigeria, and they're like, hey, Omo Ghana, how far now? And then I'm talking to my cousins, and they're like, hey, our Nigerian cousin. You know, I've always been othered, not in a way that is cold, but in a way that always makes you think that, oh, who am I as a person? So identity really speaks to my work and what I do. I'm always on the other side of things, figuring out, okay, if even in music, if commercial music is doing well, what's happening in the alternative space? What's happening with people who are still touring with bands? I'm always thinking about that naturally because of who I am. And when it comes to like my career, my dad, my mom is just a supportive person. I mean, I remember she never really asked, what do you want to be and things like that. She was like, oh, if you are interested in this, we see how you can go. And I think that has really helped in me navigating my way through things. My dad on the other side, he was and I get him because he was quite older, and so he was understanding of the fact that you need financial, security, especially as a woman. And he used to make certain comments, but now I realize that he was really just trying to say, the earlier as a woman you are financially secured, the faster you're able to navigate your choices on marriage and whatever you want to do. But as a young girl, I thought he was just trying to make me want to go to school, finish, and then marry early. That wasn't the case for him. I understand him now that I'm older. But he really wanted us to do like a profession where there's a constant flow of money. And even though I was rebellious on everything he wanted me to do, I think that that has also helped me in a way that I really cannot do without a 9-to-5. I need that consistency. It really helps in me structuring my life. I have been months without a job and just doing the creative work. Aside there not being a constant flow of money, which is a global issue, not just a Ghanaian thing. I find that I wasn't operating at my best. And because I'm very efficient, I become lazy in that, I'll do it later. But if I have like a full-time job, I'm able to structure because I don't have enough time. So that has been it for me. And my last point is, on the issue of creatives struggling, I do know that there is a struggle, and the struggle is systematic. Financially, yes. We are in a part of the world where, again, there's no governmental support, so that makes it 10 times harder. But if you look at the global perspective, artists, creatives, cultural practitioners do struggle because your work, even if you're an artist, you're not producing 24/7, right? So it comes in phases, and so maybe June to July you are working on, or June to September you are working on your arts,
the project.
The project itself. There's nothing really coming in. You're surviving on what has come in before. But I think, and maybe I am of this mind again because of speaking to a lot of finance people who work in business, finance. I think it's a global, naturally, any career, there are struggles, because when I think of the salaries I have gotten or the payments I have gotten for stuff that I've done in curating symposiums or festivals or experiences of people coming to Ghana, and as against the money that some of my friends or mates are making full-time from being in the bank, I'm like, what? Are you telling me that me working as a teaching assistants in humanities, I'm actually making more money than someone in the banking sector? We kind of are not aware of these things. Are you telling me that I'm actually making more money? I don't have money, please, but I'm actually I'm actually making more money than someone who is just out of law school. Yes, of course, there are the times where they have banking season where they get a contract and then there's bonuses, but there's also that for us if you work in the creative sector. So I think creatives need to understand that despite the challenges, they're not actually alone when it comes to the career of things. Is that it's something that happens, and that awareness might make it less daunting and less less of a self-inflicted suffering that you think that I'm not making so much.
Well said. Truly.
I think we're spot on. The time, but let me just look, because I don't want to miss this opportunity. It's not every day I get 𝗿𝗏𝗃 and Lace on one chair. What did I mess with that? Oh, just randomly. There's Fiancari Review. You guys just put out a call in collaboration with Found
Space. Yes. I should talk about
the fact that it's sisters working together.
Yes.
What is that?
I think I thought it was the right time to see how we kind of put our energies together and see what we could do. My sister studied theater at the University of Winneba. And she has been in theater ever since she graduated from her theater first class, actually. Very proud about that, And she's done some stuff in film, even studied some stuff in journalism and film at GBC. Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, GBCS. And so seeing how she has grown and always coming to me like, oh, what should I do and stuff like that, I felt that, oh, I'm also doing my thing. You have a really good theater group. Let's see how we can work together to, you know, put this idea out. And it's something that I had in mind for a while, to see how we can collect real life experiences and turn them into intimate performances. And she already had found space. It just came at the right time. So yeah, I'm excited to see how we work together. I can be a bit bossy.
You're the older one.
Yes, I am the older one, but naturally sometimes when I'm working I can be very like headstrong, and she has a lot of patience and she's a more social one. So I think it will be a nice, yeah, it's a nice combination.
Yeah.
To close us out, 𝗂𝗏, would you, this is a question that gets asked often across sectors, like, what would you say to your younger self? What do you wish you knew?
Advice for my younger self. I think I would say stick the course, because it does pan out. It is difficult. I would definitely say that it's tap into the fact that creativity rarely exists in one genre, and so be as expansive as possible, which I've tried to do. But then the thing, and I was in a session where I got to tell you this, but I think there's a responsibility that creatives have and should be actively aware of, which is that it's almost like you're weeding a path, and when you arrive on the path, somebody has weeded before you, but then there's a point where you need to do more weeding. And the thing I always say is that the responsibility of a creative to a large extent is that someone is going to come after you, and their parent, they're going to tell them, I want to do what you're doing. And the parent needs to be able to look at you and say, okay, this makes sense. I can see the logic in this. So what I tell creatives is that their responsibility, or one of their responsibilities, is that given the fact that we're in this sector where there's not a lot of respect put on our sector, there's not a lot of understanding, you have to think someone is going to follow in your footsteps at some point in time. And that person is going to be trying to explain to their parents that this is what they want to do. If they can point the parent to you, and then the parent can look at you and basically be like, okay, I see the vision, then you've done something. You've made a contribution. You've weeded the path a bit further for that person to now come and follow. And if we keep on doing that, we'll eventually reach... If we keep doing that, we'll eventually get to where we need to get to. Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome episode, curating dreams, a creators podcast. 𝗂𝗏 and Liz didn't disappoint. I knew they wouldn't. And I survived with some people who talk for a living. Thank you guys. Enjoy.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you.